Welcome back to another episode of Spiritual Teachers Podcast. With me today is Sunshine. Sunshine is a Surukana medicine woman. She's a Mukana Lian shaman, a clear conduit to the ethereal world and also to the underworld. Sunshine does frequency healing and she's a trauma disruptor. It's such an honor to have you on, Sunshine. Thank you for
It's my
joining.
honor. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm super stoked for this episode today. We have some really juicy topics for you in store. But as you know, with this podcast, sometimes spirit guides it in a different way. So, some of the topics we may cover is past life recollection, what the underworld actually is, and what's down there, the Chamorro culture, and remembering who we are. Awesome. So that's kind of the game plan. And Sunshine, you have a little frequency offering to share, right?
Yes, I would like to open up this beautiful session with my angel bell. I like to call in the angels so that we can all feel divinely protected and divinely seen and also divinely heard.
Beautiful. I love it. Yeah, those are two really important parts of being human,
Yes,
being seen and heard. So this is
yes.
amazing.
So this is it's actually called a solar bell.
Wow. I've never
But
seen anything like it.
yes, my friend Josh over at Earth Tuned, he creates all of my instruments for
Wow.
frequency. And this is the perfect 432 hertz frequency.
Wow. So for anybody listening in, this is like an oval tuning fork, right? But with a
Yes.
gap at the bottom with some really amazing Eye of Horus on there and some pyramids, some
And
snakes.
raw. And there's two snakes and
Uh-huh.
a sun and a moon. And
Wow.
then at the very top is the star, and it's the perfect balance of the masculine and the feminine coming together to make the perfect 432 hertz.
Wow. I can feel how powerful that thing is. I can't wait to hear it.
Okay, we're going to call on the angels.
Let's do it.
Okay. They're here.
Thank you so much, Sunshine. The sound didn't come through that well through the Zoom, but I could feel it, and hopefully everybody else felt it. And the intention and the presence of the angels is here now. So that's the that's the important aspect of that beautiful practice. So thank you so much for sharing that beautiful gift with us. And so traditionally, how the podcast usually goes is we open up the space to share a little bit about the awakening journey. So I would love to hear how everything started for you. And I know you've had a really powerful life, a lot of challenges and beauty and all kinds of aspects that have made you the woman you are today. So um, would you be open to sharing that, please?
Yes. So, oh my goodness. So, I actually had one of my first awakenings when I was 5.
Wow.
Yes, I had a near death experience. I actually, my appendix ruptured, and
Whoa.
yeah, it was very, very septic.
Hmm.
And I actually had died on the table.
Wow.
Yes.
That gives me chills.
Mhm. And so that was my first introduction to the underworld.
Okay.
Yes. Um, and I knew that there was something different about me from a very early age because I would always want to be out on the land.
Hmm.
And I always spoke to animals and I would always make bird sounds and I would just be in my own little world and I would create potions and um, different salves and tinctures and stuff like that when I was a
Wow.
child. Yeah. Um, but I knew that, um, yeah, I was different
Hmm.
because my mother was clinically and chronically ill,
Mm.
mentally, physically, and spiritually. And I always thought to myself, how is it that the way that I feel so much love and I feel so connected to everything around me that I came from this woman. Yes, I mean, I thought that as an early, very early, as a child,
Hmm.
and I even wrote in my journals and told her very often that I never wanted to be like her. And for reference, my mother was had struggled with
Hmm.
addiction with a lot of drugs, but also addiction to sex.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and men.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so I saw a lot of different things growing up that a child should never have to see or experience. And I kept a lot of that in.
Hmm.
And then I had another near death experience when I was 15.
Oh,
I got
wow.
in a car accident and broke my neck.
Oh, gosh.
I fractured C4, 5, and 6.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, and I was paralyzed on my right side.
Whoa.
Yes, and had to learn how to walk again, all that stuff.
Hmm.
Um, and that was another one where it was just like, okay, something is definitely tugging on me. And then that's when I actually experienced the ethereal world.
Okay. Getting
Mm-hmm.
chills again about that. So, uh, before we continue, would you be open to sharing like what you saw or any of the experiences that you had when you were 5 in the underworld and then when you were 15 and the differences between the two?
Yes, yeah. So when I was 5, I actually was going through a lot of trauma. I was going through a lot of actual hmm, sexual trauma.
Hmm.
I um, I was sexually abused by men that my mother would bring into our home,
Oh my gosh.
and my mother just checked out with addiction,
Mm.
and so I actually did not remember anything from my childhood up until recently, from the up until the age of 7.
Hmm.
Um, and I had to do past life regression to remember. However, I vividly remember what happened when I was 5 when I went to the underworld.
Okay.
And what I saw was I saw serpents and I saw
Okay.
dragons.
Dragons.
Yes.
Okay. What color were the dragons? I'm really fascinated now.
The dragons were green.
Okay.
Mhm. And, that is the color of the heart chakra.
Hmm.
And so um, I had to really figure out why I was seeing green dragons, and also green serpents.
Hmm.
And it was because my mother had completely blocked off her heart chakra when I was born.
Oh, wow.
She used to tell me very quite often that I was never wanted, and that this replayed over and over in my head. And I actually have now released that because I know it wasn't her speaking. It was just an energy that she could not get rid of. Right? It was not her trauma, but she was giving it to me. She used to tell me that when she was in labor, she thought she would had to take a shit, and I came out.
Oh my God.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I mean, and what this makes me think of is just these, you know, our parents, I'll speak for myself in this situation, came from a very different upbringing, a very different time, a very different frequency, most importantly, right? And and so for me, it's been a journey with really tuning into that where they were at, the programs that their parents and who knows how far back had been passed on to them. And that's beautiful. What you said was like it wasn't really her. It's not her soul saying that. It's something else that either was a pattern or an attachment of some sort of energy onto her potentially, right?
Mhm. Yeah, and I used those dragons when I was little, to help me. I would
Oh
call
wow.
upon them when I would go run in the forests. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, and we lived on land or wherever we were, or we lived in a tent a couple of times too because we were running from the police.
Oh wow.
In the woods. And so I would make little worlds
Hmm.
with all of my fairies and my gnomes and my forest creatures, and I would come and ride the dragons, and they would help me out of situations. I would escape into the woods, and I don't know if you remember Pete's dragon.
Oh yeah. Hmm.
That was like when that came on, I was like, what the heck? That's my dragon.
I love it. I love it. So he kind of look like your dragons?
Yes, but actually, Pete's dragon is much more cuddly looking.
Right. Right.
My dragon was very, very like not evil, but to the point where it was like very stern,
Like Game of
right?
Thrones dragons?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes.
Okay.
Like Game of Thrones. Because that was who I called upon to get me out of situations that were happening to me,
Hmm.
um, especially if it was physically or emotionally. My mom was also very physically abusive and also very emotionally abusive.
Hmm.
And so I would ride my dragon out of certain situations up here.
Hmm.
So if there was something going on with me physically, like if I was being sexually molested or physically abused or emotionally abused, I would check out
Hmm.
and I would ride my dragon somewhere else.
Hmm.
Um, I would leave my body.
Right. I can relate to that for sure. And for me, it was like escaping into video game worlds or into like really deep um, books, like that had a whole world built around them, like Narnia or Harry Potter, those kind of things. I
Yeah.
felt I felt like those were really beautiful worlds to step into in those moments and in those times. So. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for your vulnerability and for sharing about the dragons. And it makes me think also that about dragons and how in society sometimes dragons are looked at as like these powerful, fire breathing, like scary, almost evil, like borderline evil beings, right? That are really like disruptive and destructive and and I had this whole journey reconnecting with my dragons over the last couple of years, and I learned that the dragons are like the rulers of the reptilian race. And so they were the ones that were the most wise. They had the most control over themselves. They knew how to really like center themselves. They knew how to be really amazing leaders and guardians of the planet. And my lineage goes back to the Russian czars, and so with that, it's like that dragon lineage too. So it's really interesting that that's what you saw in the underworld. That's really powerful.
Very, and they're guardians,
Hmm.
they're guardians. And just like you said, they're very sovereign, right?
Hmm.
They're very wise. And I've always been a very wise, sovereign, unbreakable, unshakable to almost to the point where it came off very cold.
Hmm.
Um, I've always been like that because I had my dragon.
Right, right.
And I needed to be able to ride my dragon, even in the physical, even growing up and also being an adult in any situation, to rescue me basically and be my guardian. Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Well, that's amazing. So it brings up the question about the underworld, right? Like a lot of people associate the underworld with hell and fire and lava and Satan, right? So in some of the shamanic teachings that I've learned, the underworld is a place where there's a lot of woods, a lot of nature, and there's these power animals down there that are just waiting for us to tap into them and connect with them. And then that energy can be brought back into this reality and worked with. So, can you speak a little bit on that?
Oh goodness, yes. So because I also I present myself with the shaman energy frequency, right?
Hmm.
Whenever I'm out on the land, I'm always presented with an animal that has just passed.
Mm.
I have lots and lots of bones and feathers and wings and different things in my space. I live in a van,
Hmm.
so it's full of all of my little yummy tools and gifts that mother gives me.
Hmm.
And I actually have one right here that I just got.
I'd love to see it.
um, this is
Is
a
that
little dog.
rabbit?
Yes, a little
Wow.
tail. Mhm.
Wow.
And then this is a gray fox.
Wow.
I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, you could see it. Wow. Yeah, that's powerful.
And I also have his tail.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Wow. Beautiful.
yeah, and so um, when they have just passed, and a lot it usually happens around the new moons and the full moons.
Which is tonight.
Yes, and I actually go into ceremony 3 days before the full moon. And so actually these last two and a half days, I've come across even more animals.
Oh, wow. What do you think that is? Why do you think around the moons there's these correlations?
Because when you have both, um, the moon is full and the sun is always full, right? So you have both of the duality, the dark and the light. You are opening a portal, literally a portal for you to tap in to the underworld.
Uh-huh.
However, when you tap into the underworld, because it's so bright, the sun is so bright and illuminated, it's actually, you are bringing your light into the underworld.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, so people think, oh my gosh, it's a full moon. You can't go out. It's crazy out there. The animals are going to kill you. It's like, whoa, 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 wait a minute. We're all so enamored by that light, the light that's there, that we are just basking in the wonderful beauty of the illumination of the darkness,
Right.
right? So, that darkness, because it's so illuminated by the full moon, we are able to connect deeper with the underworld.
Mm,
Because we're like, a lot of people can't sleep. Your sleep is disrupted. All of this, you're like a lot of energy, angst, and stuff. So a lot of people are outside, longer, looking up at the moon, and so you're more connected to all of your kin, which
mm-hmm,
is all of the flora, the fauna, the animals, everything that is hidden in the dark usually
mm-hmm,
comes out to play. And so you're all together communing under this bright light. And when you see that bright light, it just brings forth so much love because we're all just basking in the illumination.
mm-hmm. Okay, beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, so if we bring it back a little bit to the underworld, right? What is it in the shamanic teachings that what's down there? Like I believe you can get your power animals like we discussed. What else have you seen down there or experienced down there? What makes it what else is down there?
It's you that's down there. You.
Right, right, right,
All of us,
right.
right? We have to realize that in the darkness, we're still here, right? Like it is, people think that the underworld, like you said, is hell or it's some place,
Hmm.
right? It's not a place that we actually can physically go to.
Hmm.
It's a place where we have been before we became earthside. Because
Hmm.
when you're in the mother's womb, it's dark.
Hmm.
So you're in this darkness. All you can do is use all your clairs,
Hmm.
right? Because you can hear in the womb, you can feel in the womb, you can smell, you can taste. There's all these different things that are happening in that portal of darkness,
Hmm.
right? And it's creating this beautiful life to come out into the light.
Hmm.
So it is in all of us. That is us. The underworld is us. It is our shadow.
Hmm.
It's something that we have to look at as um, creation.
Hmm.
You cannot grow and evolve if you cannot sit in darkness,
Hmm.
in silence,
For sure.
because yeah, and so the underworld is something that is honestly different for everyone
Okay.
coming through your perspective, your reality. We all have a different reality, like the way that we've been raised or we've conditioned, or programmed, or where, your cultures, everything is different. So everybody has a different reality and perspective of what the darkness is and what the light is.
Hmm.
So that's where we need to um, allow people to experience their own darkness.
Hmm.
I mean, that's kind of along the lines with also with the trauma work, right?
Hmm.
Is you have to experience your own darkness. So the underworld is whatever you want it to be, and know that it's not something that you cannot come back from.
Right. Right.
You
Yeah.
can come back from that. That's the key.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a huge key. That's a huge key because in order to grow and in order to raise your frequency, you have to shed those layers of trauma, of those dark shadows, the addictions, all those things that are blocking that evolution and frequency, right?
Right. And those are all you. that's what I mean. Like it's you, the underworld, the darkness, the shadow. That's all you. That's a part of you that has allowed you to evolve.
Hmm.
So that's why we cannot fear the underworld.
Hmm. Right.
It is us. It
Right.
is us.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and for me, I had a really like it just felt like being in Alaska or like in really lush green nature, and all these power animals came and I saw all kinds of different ones and yeah, it was a really beautiful exploration for me and I connected with the bear.
Wow.
Yeah, I connected with the bear my first time down there, and this big brown grizzly bear came and like I got on top of him, and he kind of allowed me to go for a ride on his back, around around the underworld. So that was my first experience with it.
That's so cool.
Yeah, yeah, it was really neat. So do you journey there a lot?
Yes. That
Okay.
is actually so that's kind of my karmic node
Hmm.
is Scorpio,
Hmm.
my south node. And so I have been carrying a lot of karmic baggage for thousands of years.
Hmm.
And so in order for me to clear that out and bring forth the light that is from the darkness, I've had to go into the underworld most of my life, and I
Hmm.
still do. However, now I know how to say, you know what? I don't think I want to today.
Right, right.
It's kind of that finding that balance of, because when I go into the underworld, that is actually where I also get a lot of downloads.
Hmm.
Um, because I'm so connected to a certain frequency, and it doesn't scare me.
Hmm.
Nothing scares me.
Hmm.
Really, nothing scares me.
And that's huge right there. There's
Yeah,
not many people that can say that.
I have zero fear
Wow.
because I know that fear feeling is actually a catalyst to action.
Mm.
Because when you experience any type of fear, you're going to have to choose to eat to get out of that, right? So fear creates action,
Hmm.
and I'm all about action.
Right. Right. Right on. Okay. I
Yeah.
love that. I love that perspective. I think that's really beautiful because I read something the other day in this book called The Big Leap, and mentioned, actually I have it right here. He mentioned that this was huge. Okay, so he said, fear is excitement without the breath.
Love it.
Like that resonated so deep that you can just alchemize fear into excitement just by breathing into it and by recognizing that underneath this there's just something ready to move and take action, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And me being able to go into the underworld allows me to do my work at a very high level because let's face it, a lot of humanity is, um, I would almost say, physically and emotionally stuck in the underworld, if you want to call it that, because they feel like they are stuck.
Yeah. Yeah, lower chakras for sure.
Yes. And
Hmm.
so, because of my experiences as a child and a teenager, and also as an adult, I've had a lot of sacral mm, activations,
Hmm.
if for lack of better words.
Hmm.
And so it has created a um, a platform for me to go into those sacred underworld spaces because of the sacral, the womb, where it's like you feel that different darkness down there. And so I'm very good at the dark feminine.
Right, right. And that's important. I mean, it's that right there, not a lot of people talk about, even nowadays with all the spiritual movement, and you don't have a lot of women really going there and highlighting that specifically, and even less of the masculine talking about that, you know? So I think that's a really important offering that you have.
Yeah, because I mean, because we have such sacred energy, we can be conditioned and programmed into using it in a way that is dark.
Hmm.
And we are taught that, unfortunately, in certain
Like an example would be lust, right?
lust, manipulation,
Hmm.
yeah, control.
Hmm.
Yeah. And it's because we have had that taken away from us,
Hmm.
right? Especially if you have suffered from any sort of sexual trauma,
Hmm.
uh, that control, that innocence, that all of that stuff was taken from you. So then in turn you take it back, and then now you use it as like this archetypal energy, like a Kali energy, to
Hmm.
like get what you want.
Yeah. Or get revenge almost.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
However, what we need to understand is that when you are using that archetype for your advantage,
Hmm.
it is something that you have created in order to survive in a world that you did not feel safe in. So now you're creating this safety net for yourself by using the sacral energy as control, as manipulation, right? And so, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, do you think there's karmic repercussions for this?
Uh, um, ooh, I was going to say absolutely. However, I've kind of switched a little bit with that. Um, it can be
Hmm.
karmic. However, when you recognize the tools that you're using as a way of manipulation,
Hmm.
uh, then you can break that karmic cycle.
Right. Hmm.
Yes. So yes, it does have karmic energy, which like I said, I'm my South Node is a Scorpio karmic underworld, so I had to experience all of that, and I had to use all of that to my advantage. And once I realized that um, it's actually not my tool, it was actually my mother's tool.
Mm, that's huge.
She used it very much, and
Hmm.
I witnessed it
Hmm.
to get what she wanted from men, from also corporations and businesses and different things to manipulate, to get what she wanted on a very low vibrational frequency,
Hmm.
very manipulative. Um, when I finally realized that, I gave that backpack back to her,
Hmm.
and I said, okay, I'm done. I'm done with your backpack. Here you go. It's actually very light now. You're welcome.
Right, right. I
I
dumped a whole bunch of it out, just left you a little bit.
yeah, and now you can give it to your mother.
Hmm.
There was a lot of incest molestation in my mother's family as well.
Mm,
So it was trickled.
I see. Yeah.
And once you hand that backpack over to its rightful owner, um, then your karmic cycles are over,
Hmm.
and mine are over now.
Hallelujah.
I know
It's
it's so
such a huge relief, you know?
yes, yeah. And now my backpack is heavy because I have my own tools in it, and it's my forks.
Oh my God. Yeah, you got some big, they're some of the biggest forks I've ever seen. I mean, the one you pulled out in the beginning, that round one, and then you have some that what are like 14 inches long?
Well, this is yeah. Here's the throat chakra fork.
Gosh. Yeah, for anybody just listening in, I mean, it's thick. It's probably an inch and a half thick around, and then it's long, like probably at least 15, 16 inches long, huh?
And this is one of the smaller ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's made out of rocket ship material.
Whoa. That's really cool.
Yeah. And it has the same resonance as the bowls,
Oh, okay. Like
but you
sing
can feel it.
like singing bowls.
Yes.
Okay.
It can be very loud,
Hmm.
especially if you have multiple together. But this is more of a frequency. So you feel it more in your body with the bowls. You can feel it, but you hear it more.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Beautiful. So, uh, was there anything else you wanted to share about the underworld, or are you ready to
Yes.
transition? Okay, let's do it.
The only thing I have to say is don't fear it.
Okay.
Don't fear it because it's you, and trust it because it's you. You
Hmm.
always have to trust yourself. Trust all parts of yourself, the good, the bad, the ugly, because those are just words. They're labels. They're labels that are trying to keep you stuck in a loop of not uncovering the true essence and the true meaning and identity of the underworld.
Mm, okay. I like that. I love that. So, you went into the underworld when you're 5. Now you're 15, and you go into the ethereal world. Very different. Uh, and I'm so curious about your experience.
So I got into a car accident, fractured C4, 5, and 6. I was in a lowrider Jimmy with a whole bunch of high school guys.
Hmm.
I was a track athlete and I just came back from the Junior Olympics.
Hmm.
Um, and I was in the car with my teammates and I was sitting on my boyfriend's lap at the time in the front seat.
Oh boy.
Back in the 80s, this was in the 80s, this was
Uh-huh.
1988.
Okay.
Sorry, 89. And we didn't have to wear seatbelts back then.
Hmm.
And so we were in a place called Granite Falls, Washington, and it's very rural. There's lots and lots of woods and forests. And he was going up a really windy road, and we fell down a cliff and rolled down the cliff, and my head hit the ceiling over and over
Oh,
and over again.
oh
So I
my
had
God.
concussion fractures. And when I got out at the bottom of the ravine, well, let me back up. I don't remember getting out physically. I remember like spiritually, like my soul and spirit leaving my body, and I could see myself, outside, and we
Hmm.
had to walk up this hill, and my neck is broken, so it's like,
Oh
you know,
God.
I felt like it was just like not on there, right? It was just like waving back and
Oh
forth.
God.
It wasn't, but that's what it felt like when
Right.
I was circling around my body. But I was flying over my body, and it was like I said, in a forest. So we were down in the woods, and all of these birds were around me, swirling around, turkey vultures swirling around my body.
Whoa.
Like they're gonna come and pick me up.
Yeah.
Um, and ravens and crows and hawks and eagles, and we were all just swirling around, flying around, looking at my body.
Wow.
With birds, I actually communicate with birds. Birds are actually angels in disguise
Mm.
because they have wings and they sing beautiful song. And so they are messengers from the ethereal world. And I got to experience what it felt like to fly.
Wow. What an amazing experience.
I know. And then I found myself in the back of an ambulance.
Okay. Okay. So did you experience the angels? Did you see them? Did you communicate with them when you were flying?
So I was communicating with the birds. So I
Okay.
communicate with birds still to this day, and they are angels. So I communicate with birds, certain birds, uh, with with my ancestors out on the land anywhere. So I have certain birds that are certain ancestors. Like my father, he passed when he was 49, 23 years ago, and he is a hawk.
Oh, cool.
Yes. So, yeah, so there's a lot of different ways that I communicate, like I said, with the angels through birds. And so when I was flying around with all the birds above my body, I actually felt like I had angel wings attached to me.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And so it was like I was not trapped, because I don't like that word.
Uh-huh.
I was hanging out.
Right.
Hanging out between the spiritual and the physical. And it was almost like I had this choice of, am I going to go back to the physical and finish out my purpose? Or am I going to keep swirling and flying, wherever we are in the ethereal with my angel wings, with my guides,
Hmm.
with the hawks and the all of them, right? So they were kind of right there, like, okay, are you ready? Which way are you gonna go?
Hmm. Hmm.
And so I just knew that I needed to go back and fulfill my purpose. Because like I said, I always knew deep down that there was something that I was here to do.
Hmm.
I had a greater purpose. And I made a deal that I would keep an open relationship with the ethereal and the physical. And then that gray area, which is almost like the underworld, because I correlate gray area with this timeline that we're living in.
Mm.
As most of our brothers and sisters are walking a very fine line between living and not living. And so
Mm.
I call that the gray area or the void. And you could kind of describe it as the underworld.
So when that brings up the question, when somebody, because so much of humanity is out of body, they're just barely in the body. That most of them are up here somewhere. So is would you relate this gray area with where the souls are kind of hanging out, or how?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
yes, because oh boy, there's so many things that are being placed upon us. And I say upon us because it's not allowing us to ground into our true authentic selves, our true identity.
Hmm.
So it's numbing our soul. So it's kind of like stuck in that gray area,
Hmm.
right? So a lot of our food, the things they're doing to the skies, the television, all of, there's a lot of programming and conditioning. I call it the mind virus.
Hmm. Hmm.
There's a lot of the mind virus in humanity right now, and that is numbing our soul. So it's not allowing our soul to actually be present in this timeline, which is actually heaven on earth, if you
Absolutely.
really want it.
Yeah, it's I believe that we create that. We create
Absolutely.
that, and it can be created in the most chaotic and far out times. I know for me, COVID 2020 was like the best year of my life because we created that. We created that heaven on earth, literally.
Absolutely. And it was the precipice to me really uncovering who I was supposed to be. because I lost
Mm.
everything in 2020. I
Hmm.
lost my business. I lost my home. I lost everything that I ever knew, friends that I thought were my ride or die, because of my sovereignty, my beliefs, a lot of different things. However, it was supposed to happen because it allowed me to get rid of all the masks, the characters, the numbing, the everything that was keeping me in that gray area.
Hmm. And that brings up the question, do you believe that we choose our relatives and our parents?
Say that one more time.
Do you believe that our soul chose our lineage, our parents and our relatives?
Yes, you actually chose the DNA that you come into this lifetime.
Hmm.
Um, and you are here to bring forth the light crystalline body of that DNA before it was um, uh, before there was placed a virus in it.
Okay.
So we're right now in the collective. The collective is having such a huge tower moment that we're restructuring our DNA
Hmm.
through the people who are waking up. And people are waking up at a very rapid pace.
Hmm.
Um, Everything that is happening in this timeline is supposed to happen, regardless whatever you believe in or you think is right or wrong. It is part of a prophecy, and it's here to wake everybody up. This could not happen if these things in this existence is not happening.
Hmm.
It's the time right now for a great awakening, and people are listening.
That's why we created this podcast.
Absolutely. Thank
Because
you.
yeah, because no, of course. I mean, for me, I look back at my awakening and I was like, what podcast would I want to create for myself back then to listen to? And this is for all the people coming awake, if you will, or coming online out of the matrix into this reality for what it really is. And it's there to support everybody, to show everybody that there are so many ways up the mountain, and none of them are any better or worse than the other. The only person that's wrong is the one running around the base of the mountain saying, "You guys are all wrong for going up the mountain." You know?
And I'm already at the top going, hi.
Yeah, come on up, guys.
Seriously. And the view up here is fantastic.
Right, 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 for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, that's key because, we are waking at such a rapid pace because the masculine energy that we're living in right now, because we're also in a huge digital age.
Hmm.
We are, I mean, everything is so instant gratification,
Hmm.
right? Like,
Hmm.
I mean, even if you go, hey, Siri, you know, uh, do this or do that, it gives it to you. You
Hmm.
can order something online and it's delivered to you within an hour.
Hmm.
Nobody has to do anything anymore. There's no journey in the goal. There's no journey anymore. It's just the goal.
Right, right.
It's like, wait a minute. So it's actually taking away our sovereignty and our ability to hone in and harness our gifts and our abilities because we're not using those anymore. We're not having to use anything. Our skills, our gifts, we could just go beep,
Hmm.
send,
Right.
and it shows up. And because that scale of the masculine and the feminine energy in the collective is so off balance with the masculine, right? Because there's so much war, competition, all of these things in the collective that the feminine is like, you know what? I ain't down for this anymore.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So we're now on the land more. We're now finding our inner goddess more. We're now realizing that there truly is toxic femininity as well,
Hmm.
not just toxic masculinity, because it's together. We both have masculine and feminine energies inside of us, no matter what your physical presence is. You
Right.
know, we are all fluid,
Hmm.
right? Energy is fluid.
Yin yang.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
And so also, so the masculine and physical form is watching the feminine and physical form do a lot of work in the spiritual, that they're actually feeling it
Hmm.
in their feminine. So they're actually feeling that the shift inside themselves as well, to feel safe within themselves. So the masculine is actually going, hey, I want to learn more about this stuff as well. I want to learn more about the ethereal. I want to go out on the land. I want to be, I want to have silence. I want to be seen,
I
you
want to feel
know?
my emotions, right?
Absolutely.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so it's now safe for all of us, our feminine, to start being seen. And
Hmm.
it's such a huge, I get just chills thinking about it, because it's such a huge awakening for the planets.
Big time.
You know, a lot of things are in alignment as well. And so it brings forth that feminine energy to the physical. And old paradigms are crumbling,
Hmm.
because we don't want to live in that gray area anymore.
Hmm.
We don't want to do
Absolutely.
that.
No, no.
And in my practice, I always tell people here, if you have two decisions, two choices, right, which is amazing to have, you have choices.
Hmm.
Um, you want to look at each choice, and you want to Marie Kondo that shit.
Right.
I want to say, is it excuse my French, but I do swear.
Uh,
It's either a fuck yes
hmm.
or a fuck no.
Right.
If it's not a full body fuck yes, then you need to go back to the drawing board, and you need to go, why isn't it?
Hmm.
What am I not listening to? What am I not trusting?
Right.
Because I guarantee you that if it's a fuck no, then it is a fuck no. Like, trust yourself, trust it.
Hmm.
And because gray areas are not fun.
For sure. For sure. It's not a fun place to be. Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And okay, so coming back a little bit to your story, 15 years old, near death experience. What happened after that?
Oh, wow. So then I started really harnessing my sovereignty. And I
Mm,
actually moved out of my mother's home
wow.
after I was healed. So I had to wear a TLSO brace.
Mm.
Um, it's basically, if you've ever seen 16 Candles, and you see Joan Cusack at the water fountain, and she's got this thing on her chin, and she's got this full body brace, and she's trying to get a drink
Oh,
of water. That was me.
oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I had to have that on for almost a year. And so then after I was healed, I just started living my life again. I've been an elite athlete since I was 11 years old. And so I went back into athletics again, all of that stuff. And I moved out, and I started creating my own circle of mentors.
Oh, okay.
Yes. And that was actually through church.
Okay. Right on.
Yeah, through actually the non denominational Christian organization.
Hmm. Hmm.
I was very curious after that angel experience.
Hmm.
Now, for reference, my mother did not believe in anything. She did not believe in any power, higher, lower, anything. She
Hmm.
was, I guess you would call it, atheist.
Hmm.
She just didn't believe in anything.
Hmm.
So I was not presented with an environment that believed in faith of
Hmm.
any sort.
Hmm.
So I was curious. So I went to youth groups, and I did, I had friends that went to church and all of that stuff. So I decided to immerse myself. However, I always felt there was this disconnect. Like Like when there was singing and there was praising, like I felt the joy and the presence of the Holy Spirit. But then when there was sermons being recited, I almost felt like I could feel an undertone through the pastor.
Ah,
And sure enough, every single church I went to from the age of 16 up until my second marriage, um, almost all of those organizations got busted for fraud, embezzlement, trafficking, molestation. I mean, all these things you can imagine. And I just was like, wow,
wow.
I felt that energy. I felt the energy and I just could not get on board. So I went back to nature. Where God is, that's God for me.
Hmm. Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Yeah, I mean, that's it's so interesting because I remember I never followed up with the churches or that I used to go to, and I wouldn't go often, but maybe like just Christmas and Easter, that kind of thing. But I remember I became a Reiki master, and my mom called up the church, the local church that we would go into, and she had him come over. He rolls up in his really nice, expensive Mercedes, and he's like, Peter, uh, Reiki's against our religion. And I was like, all right. I'm like, I hear you. And I was like, that to me was I had a way more spiritual experience during my attunement, and I've been able to heal so much of myself just in the few months that I've been a Reiki master. I'm like, my mind, I'm thinking, okay, uh, thank you, and that's a goodbye, And
Yeah.
I never went back. I never went back after that. And um, I remember I went to a Russian Orthodox church, and there was beautiful art, like the murals are so beautiful of the different people, and the candles smell so nice, and the frankincense and the myrrh. And those aspects I really liked. I still work with frankincense and myrrh, and I really like the natural beeswax candles and things like that. But the undertone of like somebody saying that they can go to God for me, I wasn't down with.
Absolutely, because your relationship and your uh, perspective of God is for you and you only.
Hmm.
It's your relationship and nobody else's, because God is you. It's inside of you. And so that relationship is so sacred that you have to hold it sacred to yourself.
Yeah,
You know, it's a type of love that we only know how to give ourselves.
hmm,
And that love is through God, which is through us.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so you find nature.
Yes, and I always did as a child, but again, then I was like, thought I was a witch and I was bad and all this stuff for talking to animals and my little potions when I was a child and, riding dragons, and all these different things on all the scriptures and the books and the teachings and all this stuff was, especially with the healing hands too, because I would heal with my hands as well,
Hmm.
but there was just a lot of discrepancies that I was not understanding because I could see through the translation
Hmm.
of the scriptures, right? I was like, what doesn't it mean this way?
Right.
you know, it's like this is all the same medicine, the
Hmm.
healing hands, the frankincense, the myrrh. I mean, nature, everything is medicine.
Hmm.
So it is all connected to God.
for sure.
And so then I went into the healing arts. I actually was a nurse for
Okay.
2 years. And I was doing a lot of my healing hands on my patients as well. I worked in a hospital setting. I worked in the ER and then also in the recovery room. And I worked in orthopedics and a lot of different specialties. And I also worked very closely with the geriatric population with dementia and Alzheimer's
Hmm.
and also hospice. So I worked in hospice as well. And it was a very rewarding experience to be a part of the journey that they're about to experience on their next transition.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a whole nother level working with the geriatric population when it's in that type of setting, either hospice or an Alzheimer's clinic. I've had experience doing physical therapy in Alzheimer's clinics, and speaking of the moon, on a full moon, it was always a show. All those shadows would come out and they would just be full throttle, no filter for these people. And it was like these aspects of them were just running the show. And they
Yeah.
were, yeah, and they were just, uh, some of the nastiest stuff was said, and some, sometimes even like some low levels of violence, like throwing things and that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, I worked in geropsych. So we had a locked side and an unlocked side.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the thing with dementia and Alzheimer's is what we have to understand is when you get to a certain point in your life and you have decided you are going to now experience life differently through feeling, your mind checks out. And so now you're going to start experiencing feelings that you have numbed and pushed down for your whole life. So
Mm-hmm.
you forget about things that have recently happened. Now you revert back to, when you were younger. That's why they don't remember things, close. They remember things back in the day because now they're reverting to the things that made them feel a certain way. And so it can come out as an anger, as in love, as in a lot of different things. And so we have to give them grace, knowing that they're now re experiencing things that they have numbed with emotion and feeling because their brain, their masculine side is checked out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And it almost seems like those people are more in that gray zone that we were talking about, right? They're almost like they're probably 99% up there, and then the rest is just programs trying to run on autopilot. That it seems like in that place, it's really difficult to clear that, right? Like unless you find some sort of, like for my grandma when she had started dementia, we started giving her Bacopa and lion's mane, and that's like natural remedies that started to bring her memory back. But I mean, from a spiritual perspective, do you think that that's kind of just like a recording almost of these programs that is on rerun that is really hard to break at that point in life?
Yes, but what's happening is they're trying to break it. That's why they check out. And
Hmm.
so in that space, they need to be held. They need to feel like they are protected because they are kind of resorting back to their younger years. So,
Hmm.
they always they always look scared. They're
Hmm.
always like, not really there because of the feelings that are coming up. Like you said, they're purging old programs. They're purging the mind virus.
Hmm.
And so the mind virus is just like completely taken over at a certain point. And some people think that it's also karmic,
Yeah.
which I do believe in some of that as well. But I think the karmic part is whether you are combative or not.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even the caretakers, like when you really zoom out, maybe those people were caretaking for them at some point in one of their lifetimes, you know? And so that can be a really big rabbit hole for as well, you know? And that I think is a great transition into past lifetime regression and that kind of thing. For me, it's come as like random times throughout. Like I haven't it's been difficult for me to just like sit down in meditation and actually access that. But I've accessed it in myofascial unwinding sessions. I've accessed it in Kundalini yoga classes and the Shavasana at the end, and in really deep meditations. I've accessed it through eye gazing
Mm.
with previous partners. Like I've watched them morph into different beings that we've had lifetimes with and future lifetimes where she looked like a alien, like a blue alien or a red alien, you know, that kind of thing. And since time isn't linear, that may all be happening simultaneously, you know. So I'm really curious about your experiences with your past lifetimes and you touched on it a little bit, but I'm really yeah, what's that been like for you?
Oh my. Because I can tap into both worlds, I would say even like three worlds, right? The ethereal, the physical, and the underworld. I'm able to. It's more of a knowing and a feeling. However, lately I've been seeing now
Ah, nice.
that the experiences are so much more visceral.
Hmm.
And um, the reason why that has come online for me recently is because I have been connected. This is very new news. I have not said anything. Only a couple. Shelley knows.
Okay.
My children know. This is
And
very.
those Shelly was on the podcast a few episodes ago. Yeah.
She's my dearest, bestest sister.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Beautiful.
My my divine soul counterpart just came into my life, into
Mm,
my physical life again
beautiful. Beautiful.
after almost a decade. And
Wow.
he has circled back into my life because I have cleared that karmic baggage, that karmic trauma.
Hmm.
Um, and we have actually been in each other's lives in past lives.
Mm.
I actually have been a high priestess. I have been a queen, and I have been a couple of other things as well. And he has been my guardian, my king, and my protector, and my security guard through all of those lives.
Wow. Beautiful.
Yeah. And one of my lives that I am now reliving at a very conscious, aware, and um, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like being seen, right? I'm allowing my past life to be seen through this physical body that was passed on to me through my DNA, through my lineage. And that is the Surahana, that Makanalian. Because we, as a Chamorro culture, anything that is outside of the Catholic Orthodox church is wicked,
Hmm.
is um, connected to the underworld, right? Any healers.
Yeah, and for those that don't know that those cultures that you're mentioning and that lineage is from the Guam Island area, right?
Yes, yes, the Marianas Islands.
Hmm.
We have a lot of different DNA from different, like Indonesia and all these other places before the Great Flood. You know, they would travel back and forth through all the Marianas Islands, and
Hmm.
then when the flood came, then everybody was on certain little islands. And my ancestors are from Guam.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm from the Walafin clan, which means full moon. And it's very auspicious that we're doing this on the full moon.
Yeah.
So I am from the full moon clan.
Mm-hmm.
And um, so we suffer a witch wound.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
yeah, and so there's a lot of violence that I've had to endure in past lives and in this current reality to uncover that wound, to heal it, and then cover it back up again. So that's why I am now presenting myself fully online and in person to heal that trauma from my lineage
Mm-hmm.
because we were in hiding. Like my grandmother, she was the last practicing Surohana, and she had to only practice within the family
Mm-hmm.
because you would get in trouble. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and there is still some that practice that are out there visible, but it is a dying culture.
Mm-hmm.
It's very much a dying culture
Mm-hmm.
because of the fear. And I mean, we're talking, you know, like with the Surahanas is the female and the Surahano is the male. You
Mm-hmm.
know, with the Surahana, it was like, you know, they would take a stick, a big stick, and sharpen it, and then they would place the woman on top of the stick through their vagina, and that's how you would slowly die. Is it would be through your
Oh,
portal.
wow. That's that's next level right there. That's wild. That's
So
totally wild.
the amount of trauma and ancestral trauma and lineage I've had to clear out of my sacral chakra has been very whew.
Complex to say the least, right?
Yes, in order for me to be able to present myself for humanity, but also for my lineage, past, present, and future.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, wow. That's really powerful. Uh, so I know New Guinea's not too far away, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And New Guinea had carnivorous people like that would eat each other. Was there anything like that on Guam?
You know, I'm not quite sure because a lot of our culture has been erased.
Hmm.
When Magellan came over, he erased a lot of our culture. And, now Guam is a territory of the United States. And the only reason because of that is because they like to use our land for military bases,
Hmm.
because it is in a very good position with China and I mean Japan and I mean all different places, and so it's like it's a very good position for the military. However, we suffer from colonization. I mean, our land, our sacred land, is being stolen from us for
Hmm.
military bases. I mean, we can't even vote for a president. You know, there's a lot of colonization that has gone on, and we don't have good drinking water, and a lot of our species for plants and animals are being extinct, and just a lot of stuff is. I mean, our island is very small,
Hmm.
and so thank goodness the younger generations are standing up to colonization, and we're trying to take back our land.
Hmm.
Because we when you're in spaces of awakening, you understand that the land is the mother, and
Hmm.
we need to save her and work with her to co-create freedom.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm it's awesome to be in this time, with
I know.
it's just every day I'm like, all right, it's getting more interesting. All right.
Yeah, I
Well,
mean, even our language, our tomorrow language, it's got the original dialect is dying because of our elders have been so conditioned with a mind virus within the four walls of the Holy Spirit. When our culture and our ancestors, they went by the sun, the moon, the stars, the tide, everything. I mean, our island is, basically there's stories about uh, how the formation was, like it's a female, and there's lovers that are encapsulated in the rocks and the formation of the islands, and there's so much spirit in the island, and we need to harness that. We need to bring it back. So there's just a lot of conditioning that needs to be reversed. And thankfully, I wasn't raised where I was conditioned. So I was allowed to kind of freely float and figure it all out on my own. So now I am able to get all my downloads from my angels,
Hmm.
my ancestors through the ethereal, because I was not raised by my Chamorro family. However, we do connect with the underworld very deeply. Like, it is not uncommon. Well, I don't know how common it is anymore, but it wasn't uncommon to have bones and skulls and skeletons of our ancestors in the home,
Mm.
because we did not have a religion.
Hmm.
We looked up to our ancestors.
Hmm.
And so that is the elder wisdom. And so when you have the bones and the skulls and all of that, it's still that energy around you of the wisdom. However, we're losing the wisdom of the elders. And I am here to bridge that gap and bring forth the wisdom of the elders. Even though I wasn't raised in that culture, it runs deep through me. And
Hmm.
since I'm allowed to connect to it through the higher power, the land, it has brought forth the wisdom that I need to bring forth, right?
Hmm. Beautiful. Yeah, I mean, there's something in the DNA of each one of us that's slowly, as the awakening starts to come online, and these aspects just come through, and uh, it's fascinating. It's beautiful how that all happens, and
Ancestral wisdom is coming through very deeply for those who are listening.
mhm, for sure, for sure. And so it brings up the question of Hawaii, and Hawaii being known as a Lemurian, like the remains of Lemuria, right? Do you know if Guam is associated with Lemuria in any way?
Oh, yes. And
Okay.
Atlantis and all of that. Like, I was actually a siren.
Okay.
And people get twisted with sirens. They think that they are mermaids that, are mean and they're evil, and they use their voice to attract men to, bring them under to the underworld. Where actually a true mystical siren is part bird and
Mm.
part fish.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
Very
so we're
nice.
able to fly in the ethereal, and also and have the pretty sing, and then they have the fish aspect, right? The mermaid aspect of the underworld, under the world, where Atlantis, and it's a very magical space.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I remember I had met a woman who was from the Philippines, and she could speak over 100 different light languages. And I remember we were laying in Shavasana, just enjoying the sound bath, just laying on our backs with our eyes closed, and she starts speaking in these tongues, and I just started crying because I had this remembrance from a past life. This was another one of those moments where I was some sort of mer man or woman at the time, and I remember just like feeling it, like remembering hearing the language for the first time. And I went up to her afterwards and I'm like, "Was that the mer people language?" And she was like, "Yeah, it was." And so that was my confirmation of like, wow, okay. And it's happened like once or twice after that, and it's always very emotional to connect to that lifetime because it feels very real, and it also feels like it was long ago.
Very long ago.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, 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 very long. Like before even of all the wars and everything, the Great Wars. Like I had a life where I was alive for 700 years.
Oh wow.
That's because we weren't in war,
Hmm.
right? With all the planets and the different species and all of that, and we could thrive for 700 years.
Hmm.
And I always joke, no wonder I'm tired all the
Right, right. Yeah, yeah,
for thousands of years.
right, right. Yeah, the spirit's a little tired now, but I can relate. And so yeah, one of my dad's teachers actually, I went to Reiki share at her house, and she channeled while we were treating. She's like, you've been around when the like during the time of the dinosaurs, like you were here. So you've been on Earth for a long time, and I feel so much love for the planet so deeply that uh that that really, like, since I was a kid, just like you mentioned, it's like such a deep connection to the planet that there's no wonder I keep coming back because I love it here so much.
Yes, and what we have to understand is we are actually we're an invasive species
Hmm.
to the planet. Like we are like the human species is an invasive species to the planet. However, we've been conditioned to believe that, like, if you go to different places, oh, that's an invasive plant or that's an invasive. It's like, what? It's
Right.
actually thriving. How is it invasive?
Hmm.
That's just a testimony to the Earth's frequency and the heartbeat of Mother Earth. She allows anyone and anything and any species to come and root in her and thrive.
Hmm.
Right? So the reason why I say we are an invasive species is because we are not co-creating with her like every other species out here.
Hmm.
Right? We have decided that we want to have ownership and control over her,
Hmm.
and that is when it's invasive,
Right.
right? If we go out in nature, we can see everything co-creating with each other and supporting each other through death and rebirth and regrowth, and everything is so beautiful and so symbiotic that it's just natural.
Hmm.
However, we have come in and we have been a destructive part of that cohesive cycle,
Hmm.
right? We are that bump or that glitch in the
Hmm.
cycle. We
Yeah.
are we're damaging her,
Hmm.
and in the process damaging ourselves because we're a part of her.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sad. It's really sad. And then at the same time, there, what we mentioned earlier, this awakening's happening. So everyone's coming out of this like materialism kind of life where, oh, I need to get the newest iPhone, I need to get the newest clothes. And it's like, okay, I can go to the thrift store and get even cooler clothes for way cheaper. And like all these aspects are starting to come online that are more in synchrony with the planet, like even the hydrogen cars that they're creating, like you just that'll be amazing to just like pour a bottle of water in your car and just go. And so I like to see both sides, right? Like I like to see the the positive aspects of it as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's definitely great things, in the progress of you know the growth of things that aren't natural, right?
Hmm.
However, we've been here before many, many times.
Hmm.
Like it will, the scales of the masculine and feminine will be very tipped to the masculine, and then we have to balance it out. And then Mother Earth will be like, guess what? We're doing this. We're just gonna wipe it clean.
Right, right. Full reset, guys.
Yep, we're in a reset, and you're gonna either be here or not.
Mm-hmm. And
And so,
I think that one way that Mother Earth does it is by switching the poles.
absolutely,
Hmm.
yeah, and the polarity is definitely switching. We're because it is that time. However, I believe that we're not going to have a reset like we've had in the past,
Hmm.
where everything just crumbled or burnt or froze or all of that stuff. I don't believe that we're going to have that type of reset this time because we have created such a beautiful reality that we need to wake up to the fact that we can live in both worlds. Like, just because I'm a very natural person and I'm a Mother Gaia medicine woman, and I basically, I practice land medicine, like everything for me, for my guests, right? In my practice, I first and foremost do everything I can completely natural and
Hmm.
holistic.
Hmm.
However, there is great purpose within the imagination and progress of technology.
Hmm.
We do need to learn how to co-create with it so that we use it for good and not for bad,
Hmm.
because AI is so prevalent right now. And I used to have a very big aversion to it
Hmm.
until I've been meeting people on my journey who actually are working in the AI spaces that are waking up, and they're realizing that, wait a minute, I can be a way shower of the goodness of AI
Mm.
and nurture it as if it was a physical human, to have emotion behind it, to do things for the greater good of humanity, instead of having it flip to the masculine side where it creates destruction.
Well, that's a really interesting point. And I wanted to just add, before AI was even a thing, I had worked with ayahuasca, and the biggest message I got was like before it was even a thing. Like nobody was talking about it. It was like none of that was around. But like the biggest message I got was that AI is the opposite of love because it's got no emotion, and hate can be alchemized into love. Bless you.
Thank you.
And so I did want to share that piece, and also add that there's this bigger perspective of how we are shifting into the 5D from the 3D reality. And even though it'll be the same planet, the people that aren't, their souls aren't ready to evolve into that 5D may leave the planet or just not be in the same reality as the people in the 5D, right? Like,
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is huge. This is something that I actually talk about a lot with people, is that you are now presented with a choice.
mhm,
You can stay in that lower vibrational frequency and be comfortable
mhm.
because we do get comfortable with our own depression, our own anxiety. We can get attached to it. We can get
Our own
addicted.
discomfort, right?
Yes, we can get addicted to a discomfort. We can get addicted to all of that.
Hmm.
So that's where we need to dispel all kinds of addictions that are keeping us in the lower frequency, right? Because there's also, like, we talk about plant medicine and everything. Like, people are like, oh, plant medicine, that's also it can be an addiction. Yes, it can, if you're not ready to integrate the fullness of the messages. Like, that's another whole subject. Like, you have to allow yourself, the integration period is far more important than the ceremony itself,
For sure.
right? And people, because of addictions, have created an addiction with plant medicine to where they're getting so much information that they're not allowing themselves to process it, that it's creating a psychosis, or it's creating even more of a crutch of like, well, I'm just going to keep running. So now this is going to be my new addiction,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah,
You could be addicted to healing.
for sure. For sure. Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
Yeah, and so we now are confronted with a choice of, okay, am I going to ascend to a different vibration where I see things through the eyes of love
Hmm.
and acceptance that's at our core?
Hmm.
Or am I going to see things through AI that doesn't have an emotion?
Hmm.
Because you could just be like, hey, AI, text me, send this text, put a couple of these words in it or whatever. But and you can tell, like, it's like, huh, that's very introspective and deep.
Hmm.
You could tell it's no emotion because it's so structured.
Hmm.
Emotion is not structured.
Right. Right. Yeah, and it can almost be deceived as it, because it's like all this knowledge equals wisdom, right? But it's like, where's if there's no emotion under that, it doesn't it doesn't put it into motion, energy in motion, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's almost like it stops you in your tracks because now it's like, well, how am I supposed to respond to that big grandiose explanation?
Right, right, right.
Like
Yeah,
that just totally outdid me.
right, right, for sure. I was just talking to one of my buddies the other day. He's like, ChatGPT like helps me answer like 70% of the things that I need to know with like lawyers and all this stuff that like all the most people don't know all that terminology and all the laws. And here's ChatGPT that's just like, here, I can give you all these facts and all the things to say to sound perfect, you know? Um, but the emotion isn't there.
But that's also creating a mask. That's creating a character.
Right.
Because if you're being confronted in physical form and you actually have to recite things or you have to perform physically, you're not going to be able to uphold that level of standard.
Hmm. Yeah, no, for sure. Definitely not. Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, so yeah, it's a really interesting topic. Um, and one thing that came to mind was we came here, right? I believe we're some sort of hybrid of some sort of beings.
Yes.
There's these books about the Anunnaki coming and creating us as their slave race. Uh, some people, we have such a huge percentage with chimpanzees in commonality with the DNA. Some people believe it's like a mix of some sort of alien race with the chimpanzee. And what I've read about those times was that these beings were experimenting with all types of different animals and DNAs and trying out like, okay, is this going to work? Is this going to, be a good slave race, basically, right? But then there's the question of like a Sasquatch, right? Was that one of the original beings on this planet? Some people believe that though they were here before humanity was created. What are
They're
your
part
thoughts
of,
on that?
I believe they're part of the giants, you know.
Oh, okay.
And so if you, I mean, I'm in Sedona, I live in Sedona part time. And so there's a lot of giants living in the rock formations and they are sleeping right now. However, they're here protecting us, sleeping, and we are waking the giants up. And
Mm,
um, the Sasquatch, I believe, was an off species of the giants that
mm,
actually escaped, but had to create a form of like an animal um, that was also giant but not as giant,
right.
so that they could still be in the forests and watch over us and speak to the giants that are actually asleep in the mountains, and still get information of protection there. So that's the thing, is Sasquatch is another creature that people are like, oh, it's a fearful thing. It's like, no, they are guardians of the forest.
Yeah,
They're guardians. They're here to
for sure.
protect us. You know, all of these mystical quote unquote beings have been have been taught to us through a system that wants to not allow us to believe in that, right?
Mm,
Like, you know, all of this stuff is real. You know, it is real. There are real beings out there. It's
hmm.
still more beings that are being discovered under the water, you
Oh,
know.
big time. Yeah.
I mean, you want to talk about aliens.
Yeah. Yeah. I just saw one that like is thousands of feet under the water and it's like glowing in like rainbow
Glowing.
colors. It's like, God, it was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen.
Yeah, they live on a frequency that we as humans can't even understand, you know. And so we are still exploring and uncovering things about us that we didn't know existed within us because of, like I said previously, of all the numbing that's going on because
Mhm.
of the form of control. Because a controlled society is safe
It's easy to
for,
manipulate. It's easy to
yeah, for
command.
certain people. Yes, and there's a lot of profiting off of our traumas, and there. But like we know that we're waking up to the fact that we're being manipulated and profited off of, and when we are waking up to our gifts, it is allowing us to recognize that even more, and we're like, hell no, we won't go.
Right. Oh man. Yeah, that's so true. And yeah, that's a really interesting perspective about the Sasquatch that I haven't heard before. It's they're for sure guardians. I've interacted with three of them in Mount Shasta, and I actually have an episode where it's just me talking about that. But have you ever encountered them in the physical?
Yes.
Okay, I'd love to hear about that.
It was actually in the Three Sisters Wilderness in Bend, Oregon this last summer.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And I just knew that I was being watched.
Oh yeah, I could feel it when they were watching you.
Oh, you're being watched to no end. And my dog, who's right next to me, Mr. Watts, he is actually a conduit to the angelic realm and the underworld as well. And
Oh wow.
he actually spotted the Sasquatch first, and he spots it by smell. He's very good with his smell senses, and he can literally talk to me with just a look. And I said, I know, I smell him. So we both can have this smell too. So I can smell different animals, especially death. I can
Mhm.
smell death upon animals. And the Sasquatch, I don't know if you experienced this, but for me, the smell of the Sasquatch was almost a very um, roadkill smell.
Mm,
And I believe that is because he is a guardian of the forest. He goes around and he sets the spirits free of the recently deceased animals. And so he
mm,
has like their fur or their pelt, or whatever that animal was. He gathers that as an amulet, and
hmm.
he covers his body with that
Hmm.
to hide himself as like a camouflage.
Okay.
So I smelled him
Uh-huh.
before I saw him,
Hmm.
and it was literally like a. It almost felt angelic, to be honest, because it was like a safety protection, of a you're divinely protected.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, but it was very, very short with the eyesight because it was like, I want you to feel me, hear me, and smell me more than you see with these eyes.
Okay. So was there a moment when you actually saw the face and like did you have any eye contact or anything?
Yes, and it was a very like a studious, like, hello.
Oh, okay. Okay. It
Like
felt like
a
a,
proper.
what was
What was
that?
that? He was proper. It was like, hello.
Oh, okay.
Because
Okay.
I'm very, very witty and quick-witted and sarcastic, and I like to, give people shit and joke around all the time. And so it was one of those like, how are you? How you doing?
Uh-huh. Right. Right.
And then that was it.
Okay.
And on
Okay.
his way.
Okay. Beautiful. So, was there any telepathy involved or any messages exchanged?
Yes, it was for me to allow my guardian of me come into my life, and that is where um, yeah, things started shifting in my favor to my great protector and guardian coming into my physical life recently.
Okay. Okay. Beautiful. Beautiful. So
Because
that,
Oh, sorry. It was because I know now that I'm always divinely protected in the spiritual realm, and so that was kind of like confirmation. Like we always have your back in the spiritual realm.
mm,
So now you're allowed to allow yourself to have that guardian come into the physical realm, because I have always been so guarded and not allowing fully my guardian to come into my physical realm. It's always been um, people from karmic underworld energy that has pulled me backwards,
mhm.
right? So now, because I know who I am fully and I vibrate at my highest, truest, authentic self, I now know that the frequency that I hold, anybody that wants to be in my energetic field has to raise up to my frequency.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, I feel like that too. It's like the more I raise my frequency, the tighter the circle gets, and the more specific I am with who I spend time and energy with.
It's very intentional. We have to be
Hmm.
very, very intentional,
Yeah.
because we all know the term NPC.
Non-player character for those that don't know. Yeah.
Yes, and those non-player characters were placed here for that, for a specific purpose,
Hmm.
and that's what we talk about, the gray area. Those NPCs are hanging out in the gray area, and they are here to be our greatest teachers, because everybody is our mirror. Every
Yeah,
experience, every person is our mirror, and the NPCs are here to be our mirror, fully our mirror, to see if you can evolve.
for sure. For sure. Absolutely. Yeah, it's fascinating that that's been so real in my life where like literally if I'm activated or triggered by anything anybody does outside of me, then and it doesn't have to be a human, it could be a dog, it could be whatever, right? And if I have a reaction inside my body, then that's my responsibility to take a look at that and heal that.
Absolutely, because everything outside of us that triggers us is a false reality, right? So it's like that's why we have to vibrate a frequency of love through our lens and through our being and our presence, because, like, for instance, right now we have a great divide in the political parties. I mean, in everything you can imagine, there's so much divide, right?
Yeah,
Because we've lost love. We've lost the alchemization of turning hate into love. Um, and when you are able to alchemize hate into love, you will see souls, and you will realize and recognize that all that stuff, like whatever somebody believes in or whatever they do that you don't necessarily believe believe in, however you see each other at a soul level, you know that's all a false reality and it's not even real.
Right.
What's real is this, is us, this human connection, this visceral feeling. This is all real.
Hmm.
All everything outside of us is not real. It's just programming, it's just conditioning, it's something that is holding us hostage from truly co-creating with each other. And
Hmm.
again, that is a threat.
For sure. For
Mm-hmm.
sure. I was watching Planet Earth 3 last night. Have you ever watched it?
I have not. I don't watch
Oh,
TV really.
yeah, well it's like a nature show.
Okay.
And it has David Attenborough as a narrator, and he's my favorite. I've watched
Yeah.
all his stuff, especially as a kid, and all the way up till now. And so there's this scene where there's like 12 great white sharks patrolling the beach, and they're looking to eat the sea lions, right? And I think it's in South Africa somewhere. And I've never seen this happen before, but they caught it on film, and I didn't even know this was a thing. But at some moment, there was a tipping point, and the sea lions were like, "We've had enough." And you just start seeing them in shoals going into the water and just swimming alongside and behind the great white, letting it know like we're not gonna take this anymore. We're done with this, what, like you trying to eat us basically, right? And this is a metaphor we're getting to, right? And so they just came in swarms, like hundreds of them behind these great whites, and just pushed them back out into the deep sea. And that was fascinating to me, and it like really showed me in the nature world how, if we all came together, how much power we have over literally any corporation, any pharmaceutical company, anything, oil companies, you name it. Like if we all came together, we could be like those sea lions and move it all out. Just like,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Because we know that that was like a David and Goliath situation. Like the sharks could totally take over those sea lions. I mean, the difference between the attack is completely off center, off balance, right?
Hmm.
However, they came in groves of just, I'm standing up for myself and my sovereignty, but it's coming out of love. And because it's like we're pushing you out to not only rescue us, but you, like, go away. Like we're bigger than you. We're an army,
Right.
Um, it's still going with love. It's
Hmm.
still like, you know what, you can go out into the water, you do your own thing, stay in your lane, but we're gonna be over here. Leave us alone. We're gonna stay in our lane, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
And that's been a theme, like let's just stay in our lane,
Right.
to
Yeah.
keep going.
Yeah. And yeah. So that just gave me a lot of hope and a lot of um, excitement for what's coming. And, there's different waves of these star children coming in, right? Like my generation and your generation were kind of like termed as the indigo children. And then after that, I believe it's the rainbow children, then the crystalline children, and then there might even be another new one coming in now. But each one of us has a role to play in the development and the creation of the new world and the new Earth, moving into that 5D reality. And like for the indigo children, our role is kind of like to break it down, and then the next generation comes, and they're already doing it.
Oh
Like
gosh.
they're already creating it. And so like all we got to do is just like step out of the way for them to go. And then the ones after them, like, but those that generation is kind of building the stage, which we are too. And then that those younger kids coming in, they're like fully 12-strand DNA embodied, and they're just like, all right, here's exactly what is going to happen. And they already know exactly what to do and those kind of things. So I see it because I work with kids, and it's fascinating. It's fascinating to see how tuned in they are. And
Oh, yes.
yeah,
Full body chills when you're talking about that.
yeah.
Because I work a lot with children as well, but I also work a lot with like the millennials.
Hmm.
I'm Gen X. And
Hmm.
so um, the Gen X feminine are waking up at a very rapid pace.
Hmm.
And so we're allowing ourselves to be seen. And what it's doing is it's hitting each generation now backwards and forwards. So like then, every generation is feeling it. And so it's getting even, more aware and more potent. And like you said, with I I told one of my guests, he's 29, that I just saw recently in Sedona. I said, your generation is putting everything into action. You are here to basically save us.
Hmm. Yeah.
And because they're doers, they're the ones who are very active on social media. They're the ones, stomping the grounds. They're the ones who are very loud and out there and like, you said, putting into action. And I said, thank you, because I'm tired. And now we're going to be able to sit back and relax and say, good job.
Right. Right.
Live the rest of our lives, in our golden years, just like, this is freaking beautiful. This is exactly what we laid out for to present to you, to pick it up, to, move forward with the blueprint. And it's such a beautiful thing. And like you also mentioned, the young ones, they are like literally the 12-strand DNA is so real,
Hmm.
because the children, you just look at them and they look at you and you're just like, stuff that I'm like, give it to me. You could
Right.
just in them and they're just like, I'm not going to share it right now. But I mean, they are so locked in and connected. It's like, I again, full body chills,
Yeah.
because they have grown up in a world where there's so much AI, and then there's realism, right? There's so many different things that are all. I mean, they have so many things that they can look at and experience. They're exposed to, and they're seeing through the bullshit.
Right. Right. For sure.
They're
For
seeing
sure.
through the bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're like, no, I want to be a kid. I want to be outside. I want to be on the land. And every time I see families that bring their children to Sedona, I am just like, thank you. Thank you for exposing your children to real, to raw, to
Hmm.
what's really here, real in front of you, visceral, because it's super important. And these children are soaking it up
Hmm.
like nobody's business.
Well, I was just in Sedona a couple months ago, and it was my second or third time, and Sedona is literally like living in a national park. Like if you took Zion out here in Utah and you put a city inside of it, that's Sedona. But like even
Yes.
even more amped up and more extraterrestrial activity and all these portals opening. And I remember I watched this video on YouTube one time where this guy used frequency. I don't know how real it is, but it looked crazy. He used frequency where he tuned it to a specific frequency, this device, and then this circle started opening like a little crack in this reality. And there's a little circle, and wherever he was, he looked in, and there was Sedona in this other side of the other side of this portal. And I'm like, of course it's Sedona because there's so many vortexes and portals there.
There is, and there's portals like in the Grand Canyon, and there's all kinds of different portals around here. That's why it's so sacred. And there is certain uh, corporations that actually have their hands very deep in here in Sedona that own basically all of it, because it's so sacred and powerful, and because of all the portals.
Hmm.
Um, it's real. I mean, I see. a lot of traffic in the sky as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's like, what? I mean, and people experience it, they see it, and it's very, very real. Um, and, however, this is a place that will um, push you out
For sure.
if you're ready. Yeah.
Right. It's kind of like Encinitas or these other spiritual hubs where it's
I've
like if
spent a lot of time in Encinitas too.
yeah, yeah. It's I've been to these places and I lived in Encinitas for 8 years and you just see people trying and they're like, no, I'm not gonna look at that. And then it just pushes them out, you know? And it may seem like a choice that they made, right? But underneath that, it's a frequency of like, okay, how deep are you ready to look at yourself? And then are you ready to go to through these most tumultuous experiences to get to the other side and go through these deep healings? And then if you are, then welcome home, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Because people think that, I'm going to go to Sedona and do all, the normal vacation stuff. It's like you come to Sedona for the land.
Hmm.
The land teaches you stuff. And what happens is if you're not ready to receive her love, which means it's slow, it's not confrontational, and it's very patient.
Hmm.
Like there's no time here. This is
Right.
like a time portal. Like
Uh-huh.
it's like island time.
Hmm. Right.
You cannot vibrate on a time schedule here,
Right.
and so it can really bother some people. And get frustrated. And so it makes you feel like Sedona is a feeling energy. And so if you're vibrating too much in your masculine, you will resist it and it will push you out and it will show you things that you need to look at in the shadow.
For sure. For sure. It's a really special place.
Yes.
I really love it there. Uh, it seems like every time I go, there's just some new place to explore, and there's so much to see there
Yeah.
and experience. And the community is really special. It's also interesting because I find that in Sedona, there's a good balance between like maybe not for everyone, but there's a good balance from what I witnessed of people that are financially stable and also on the spiritual path. So they've found that balance. And, living in Encinitas, there's that as well. But when I was there, there was this deep spiritual journey, but the financial was having a hard time catching up to it.
Yeah.
And I think that that aspect is very important to continue to go up in frequency because then you can show up for the world more. You can show up for your family, for everybody when those finances are stable and secure, whatever that looks like for the individual, because it all starts here, but in the mind. Um, but yeah, do you see that? Do you find that in Sedona more so?
Yes, because the duality is so diverse, is because of the land. You're able to live on the land without very many financial resources,
Hmm.
um, so that allows for that. That completely opposite. Like there is a lot of money here.
Yeah,
um, but it's also a lot of old money.
right,
And when I mean old money, it's like, a lot of elders live here.
right,
And they bought property before it was
right,
Sedona.
right.
um, and like I said, you can live off the land. Like I explore so much of the land. Like I don't leave anything unturned, any
Hmm.
cave, any of that. And there's a lot of cave dwellers, of nomads that come here on their spiritual journey. And because of the climate, you can live here during certain seasons and on like nothing. I
Yeah.
have one of those. Five
Awesome.
dollars can get you very far.
Yeah, I bet for sure. For sure. I don't know though, because the grocery stores were so expensive.
Yes, however, there is a lot of resources as well within the community. Like they have a
Mm,
lot of community meals, and
ah,
just we take care of each other.
for
When
sure.
there's travelers, because the travelers that come, they're seeking truth. They're seeking themselves. So we don't get a lot of the addictions that are in, say, Phoenix and that kind of stuff because it's not here. You can't find it here.
For sure.
You can find a lot of 60, 70-year olds that are microdosing every day.
Right, right. Totally different vibe though.
It's a totally different vibe,
Yeah.
you know. So, I think everybody recognizes that. And there are some, NPCs here as well that are like, get out of my, town. You're muddying up the traffic and blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, do you understand that this is a tourist town? You live in a
Right,
tourist town.
right, right.
And I welcome all of them because I'm a tourist myself. I don't own this land. I
Mhm.
don't own this. I'm a tourist. This is, so I love it when I see tourists, quote unquote, because we should share our home. We should share our land. We should share our medicine. It doesn't belong to me. It's not mine to hold on to.
Right,
So, we have to understand that as well.
for sure. Well, Sunshine, this has been an amazing, amazing conversation, an amazing time. I've had a blast, and it's been such an honor to have you on. And you're welcome on back on anytime.
Thank
So
you so much. And I know we hit a couple topics and not all of them. However, I think we said what we needed to say, and it was just very organic. And that's how I live my life, organically.
for sure, for sure. That's the
No
vibe of the
script.
podcast, for sure.
Yeah, there's no script to life, and I think
Mhm.
that's what's really important for us to understand. We can't control the outcome of this existence, right? So we have to be very, very rooted in our faith and grounded in our truth. And my purpose is my presence. And I think that everyone should recognize that their presence is their purpose.
Mm, I love that. I love that. That resonates really deeply. So thank you so much, Sunshine. It's been an honor. Until next time,
Thank
take
you
care.
so much.
Thank you.